Hi. Well, let me just get straight into this. Counting numbers in general in any language have their various complications. Um, there are a lot of irregularities, and going from, say, for example, ordinal numbers to time numbers to cardinal numbers to weight numbers, whatever the case might be, depending on the language, there are different ways of handling each thing. Some languages, in some cases, you have to specify the gender of the number if it's used as an adjective, and this gender has to match the gender of the noun involved. Um, you may have to match the number of a noun that it's modifying, or whatever the case may be. Now, in the Pont language, you can use a number as an adjective, and adjectives are generally expected to agree with a noun in number and case, meaning whether it is accusative or the direct object of a sentence, or the subject of a sentence, or the indirect object of the sentence. And okay, so that aside, it is not necessary in the Pont language to use your numbers as an adjective if you choose not to, and you can avoid all that. In cases where such agreement would help to get rid of some ambiguity, you may want to use such a form. And of course, people coming from a language where such forms are the norm will probably prefer to. Pont also allows for gender agreement, again, if it is the person's choice to use it. Um, so I'm going to start simple and say, first off, in order to recognize a number as a number, um, the general way of tagging a number in Pont as numeric is to place an N on the end of it. And this is a simple form. It can be used in basically any case, although it's somewhat ambiguous because it doesn't specify what kind of number it is. It doesn't tell whether, for example, the number is an ordinal, or it's meant to be temporal, or quantitative, or whatever the case might be. Nonetheless, you can use the number with an N on the end. So, for example, one would become onein. Now, this is where I have the need for some feedback, because the word one phonetically already ends in an N. And I have tossed around the idea of words which either phonetically or in spelling end in an N or an F, and I'll explain why the F in a little while. Should maybe have that N or F removed before going ahead and putting the ending on, simply to make it easier to pronounce. That does run into the possibility that in some language, which I'm currently unaware of, there may be two different numbers which are identical, except for the fact that one ends in an M and or one ends in an F, and removing that letter might make it impossible to tell them apart. So as of yet, I have opted um, not to remove those parts, but the Pont numbers themselves uh, already are lacking them for exactly that reason, to make it easier. So in English, you would count, or in Engl'onto rather, you would count onein, twoin, threein, fourin, fivein, sixin, sevenin, eightin, ninin, tenin. No, if this sounds like I'm not speaking a foreign language and you're thinking it should be harder or you're not learning anything, think again, because there is plenty to learn without unnecessary difficulties. And this is a step in the direction of learning another language. There is a lot more to learn. However, with a few simple modifications to the English language of this sort, you can get very, very close to speaking full Pont, to speaking understandable Pont, that somebody else who has learned the whole language could understand a lot of what you're saying, even if they don't understand any of the English words involved, because a lot of the context is carried over, and a lot of the English words are going to be very similar to words that they're familiar with from other languages. So you'd be surprised the amount of information that can be conveyed simply by making English more regular. Right now, English itself is not. So Engl'onto takes that position as a sort of English reform, you might say, regularizing everything. Now, um, an additive prefix of a number can be formed by removing that n that was attached to show that it was a number and replacing it with an f, just the letter f. So 1f, 2f, 3f, 4f, 5f, 6f, 7f, 8f, 9f, 10f. Those would generally not be used by themselves. They would be used either as a prefix, as part of another word, or as a word, as a number word preceding another number word in a compound number name. For example, if I wanted to say 23, I would say 20th 3, 20th being the additive form of 20, 3 being the number form of 3, showing that it's a number. Again, this is not very regular in English. 20, 30, 40, 50. 50 starts with 5, not with 5. 20 starts with 20, not with 2. We generally don't think about that when we're fluent in English because we've been using it a long time, and we tend to forget how difficult it was to learn as a baby or whatever age we happen to learn it at. Unless you're someone who's learned English rather recently, in which case you're probably going, yeah, I know what you mean exactly. But you can mimic the Pont number forms if you want, using English words also, and this is something that is actually encouraged as you learn Pont, to take those steps to go from, say, for example, saying 25 to saying 20th 5 to saying 210f 5 210f being 2 times 10 added 2, and then 5 being the end of the number. So 210f 5 would be 25 in a more pontized form of Engl'onto, moving up a little closer to actually having another language. Try that. Try that with a few other languages yourself. Give me some feedback, please. Let me know, how hard is it? How easy is it? I need to know these things. If there are things that you think maybe should be changed, or something that you particularly like, please let me know. So, for example, 37 would become 30th 7, and that would then become in turn 310f 7, 310 being 3 times 10. So 13. Now, we could say this two different ways. We can say, well, first off, we've got 13, which is just the number. So there's more than two ways. We could also say 3f10, in which case we're saying 3 plus 10. Or we could say 10f3, in which case we're saying 10 plus 3. 10f3 would be a more standardized form to go along with, say, for example, if I wanted to say 53 instead of 13, I would say 510f3, and you notice the word ends in 10f3, just like 10f3. So the spelling, the number order, the digit order matches. If I was to say 3f10, then I'm matching the pronunciation order of 13, but not the written digit order. So it's a matter of personal choice. And in Pont, actually, in the full Pont language, you can choose to order your number names in whatever way you want. I have my own personal preference, and I'm tempted to encourage it. I may even go ahead and do that, but there again, I need some feedback. I'd like to know what other people think. No, to get into what all can you do with the numbers as far as different kinds of numbers? Well, I've actually extended the ability to pick different kinds of numbers in Pont. So instead of just having what you have available in English, you actually will have everything available that you have in Pont as soon as you learn the Pont endings. Again, we have the N ending, meaning it's a number. This is the ambiguous one. We have the F ending, which simply means added to whatever comes next. This prefix forming ending, by the way, can be used in other cases as well, which you'll learn later on. Then we have the nef ending, which is actually the N ending plus the F ending, not the letter F, but spelled EF, or in Pont letters we would say it's spelled EFO. So net EFO, being tacked onto a word or pronounced nef, tells that it is a number, but it is specifically an ordinal number. Now, the reason those things are separate is because other things can be ordinal besides numbers. For example, you could say nextef, next being an ordinal word and telling that something happens in a particular sequence. So nextef would make sense, that you're tagging the word next as being an ordinal. First def. If you wanted to use the word first, not thinking of it as a number, it just popped in your head as this is the thing that happened primarily, you could form it that way. But you could also simply say one nef. One nef, two nef, three nef, four nef, five nef, six nef, seven nef, eight nef, nine nef, 10 nef. Very simple ordinal numbers. If I want quantitative numbers, again, I could simply use 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and etc. But if I specifically want to indicate that they are quantitative numbers, I can say 1 gnome, 2 gnome, 3 gnome, 4 gnome, 5 gnome, 6 gnome, 7 gnome, 8 gnome, 9 gnome, 10 gnome. The gnome ending, again, is the number ending n plus the om ending, signifying that it is quantitative, and that om ending can be used on other words as well. If I want to indicate a time, for example, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, afternoon, whatever the case might be, the ending for that is am. That is the temporal ending, spelled am, am, and the number ending, again, n, would be placed in front of it. So at the end of the number, you would write it as the number name and then apostrophe NAM, meaning switching to Pont spelling and then nam. So it would be, again, 1 nam, 2 nam, 3 nam, 4 nam, 5 nam, 6 nam, 7 nam, 8 nam, 9 nam, 10 nam. If it sounds like you're not learning new numbers here, or new number names here, you're simply learning an ending to go on the number name, that's exactly true. That's exactly what it is. But it is functional as a separate word, as a separate name. So effectively what you're doing is you're learning as many words as you know numbers by simply learning one new ending. Another thing that numbers can be changed into is an article. So I can say one nya, which is kind of like saying but I can say two nya, which doesn't exactly have an equivalent article in English. One nya, by the way, is not specifically direct nor indirect. It is simply numeric. It's a numeric article, and it can be used implied as a direct or an indirect form. And again, what's going to be common, what's going to be liked out there, that's going to depend on people, and I really would like some feedback to see how this goes. Two nya is a numeric 2 article. 3 nya, 4 nya, 5 nya, 6 nya, 7 nya, 8 nya, 9 nya, 10 nya. And based on those, a person can also, based on the idea of a number of something, can make pronouns out of numbers by saying 1 ni, 2 ni, 3 ni, 4 ni, 5 ni, 6 ni, 7 ni, 8 ni, 9 ni, 10 ni, etc. So that's about all the time I have for this video. And again, please give me some feedback. rate, subscribe, whatever, however this works. Help me out here because I'd like to get this released to the public in a more usable form. Hopefully you can already learn something from it. Thanks.